So he's a member of the Johannesburg branch and National Executive Committee of the South African Air Force Association and heads the Benevolence portfolio, which I'm sure he'll tell us a little bit about that. So, you know, it's interesting. Earlier he and I were discussing, he may mention this, but his AFA, or the South African AFA, predates our Air Force and our AFA. They started in 45. And he served in the Air Force. That's not down here. But,
he's a pilot. He was a pilot.
Oh,
yeah.
And so here he is.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I must apologize for being inappropriately dressed today. Look at you guys. whenever we have our branch meetings, then and lunches, then we would dress in the uniform. The only difference here, our uniform trousers are grey. But when we go to National Executive Committee meetings, then we dress like anybody else here today. And so I want to thank you, and I want to thank Howard initially, because he and I were in contact initially, and Bill, then you as well. So a very, very warm, appreciative thank you to you for allowing me to be here today. I'm one of those people who feel that it's always important to communicate with people who are in the same line of business, if you could put it this way. And serving on the NEC, we're involved with many Air Force associations around the world, and I don't somehow think that we were ever involved with the American Air Force Association. So I thought I'd really make a plan to get here, and thank you for that. I just want to read a letter from our president to you. The President and members of the Air Force Association, Chapter 195, New Jersey, because that was our initial contact. Dear friends, on behalf of all members of the South African Air Force Association, I greet you and convey our warm regards to your association. We have just completed and enjoyed the camaraderie of the 72nd Annual Congress of our association, and I was informed by Trevor Slade that he will be visiting you during his stay in New Jersey. I certainly look forward to a closer liaison between our respective associations, as our Air Forces have indeed shared a common history as comrades in arms. We were allies in the Second World War and also in Korea, when two squadrons, South African Air Force, the well-known Cheetah Squadron, formed part of the US Air Force and winning many US military decorations. Thank you for taking the time to meet with Trevor, who serves on our National Executive Committee as head of the Benevolence portfolio. Your hospitality is greatly appreciated. With very best SAFA wishes, Major General retired Hugh Payne, National President of the South African Air Force Association. Maybe you'd like to keep those letters as part of your record.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. I'll do that later. I come out, just as a way of introduction, my mother had something like 5 or 6 brothers, and her father was the 27th member of the South African Air Force, going right back to the founding of the South African Air Force. And he'd come out to fight in the Anglo-Boer War, and then joined initially this Air Force. And all of my uncles, bar one, served in Korea, and part of United States Air Force Wing, and with number 2 Squadron. They were all ground crew people, and continued their career in the Air Force many years later. My youngest uncle flew in 2 Squadron. He flying F-86s in those days, in the middle 50s. Remember those beautiful little jets? And so I come out of a background of Air Force, and it's a privilege for. Now, I was just chatting to somebody. I didn't even know that the South African Air Force Association existed before. It was only through other people. And so, having grown up in the Air Force in some way, one never had an idea of what was going on as far as the association is concerned. One of my parishioners, I'm retired now, but one of my parishioners in the church that I used to run was a Royal Air Force member, a Royal Air Force Association member, and they needed a chaplain. And so he said to me, come along and join and join the RAFA, as it's called, Royal Air Force Association. And so I'm the chaplain to the Johannesburg branch of the Royal Air Force Association as well. And at one of those meetings, somebody from the South African Air Force Association was there, and he said, who are you, what do you do, whatnot? And I said, well, I used to be a member of the South African Air Force. And he said, well, why aren't you a member of our association? I said, I don't even know about you. And I was just chatting to somebody, many serving Air Force people here don't know about the association. And so, am I speaking too fast? Should I slow down? Can you understand? Should I speak a lot slower? No, you're fine. I'm really kidding you.
No.
And when I matriculated, in those days, you must understand, we were in the thick of the apartheid state, where there was the segregation and racism maybe you guys don't even understand racism that we were going through at the time. And I did my national service. I was drafted into the infantry, and I served in the infantry battalion. And coming out of that, just 9 months, I put a pack sack on my back, and I'd had enough money. I got on a ship in Durban, and I headed to New Zealand, and I hitchhiked around New Zealand, and I worked in Australia as a geological field assistant, and later on did geology when I came back to South Africa, and Japan and so on. But on the way to Japan, I was on a ship and we stopped off in Guam. And I don't know if anybody has been to Guam, and we cruised into this harbour, and there was a nuclear submarine in the harbour. Have you seen those things? The bow and the stern sort of disappear under the water, and they are long. And it's black, and it's the most evil looking thing I've ever seen. Frightening.
And big.
Big, that's massive. And that afternoon, leaving on the ship, a B-52 was coming in, obviously dropped a load in Vietnam, and it was coming into land at the Air Force Base. I'd visited the Air Force Base, but couldn't get in there, but I still, they gave me a Strategic Air Command sticker, which I put on my car when I got back. But there was a B-52 coming into land at the Air Force Base, and those engines pump out, you guys would know, pump out enormous amount of muck. Really, it's a lot of muck. And the setting sun was behind this aircraft coming into land, and those trails out of the engines looked like solid gold streaming out of the engine. It was the most beautiful sight that I've ever seen. Really, I wish I had my camera, I would have taken a picture. And so, and eventually getting to Europe, it was at the time, I think, that drafting, is that the right correction? Drafting of Americans into the Vietnam conflict, and I met what they called ROTC. I heard somebody called ROTC just now,
right.
And Students for a Democratic Society, the SDS, and those guys used to sort of be in huge conflict. Remember? And I was sort of amazed that seeing young Americans in this kind of conflict and resisting the Vietnam War. Now I know that probably some of you guys were involved in Vietnam. And with the history of that, I've decided I would never want to visit that country because I'm one of those strange people that I've aligned myself with you guys, Okay, so then I arrived back in South Africa. I started my BSc at the University of Port Elizabeth and finished my second year. And opened the newspaper one day and I saw flying training was offered in the South African Air Force. So I thought, oh well, my whole family were involved in the Air Force, not ever thinking I would get in because as you know, it's stringent, the requirements are very strict. Anyway, I got in and I started flying the Air Macchi 326MB. Air Macchi, it's an Italian aircraft, a training single jet engine training aircraft, and that's all I flew actually. And I was at Flying Training School, Longebaan Road, down in the Cape, about 70 miles north of Cape Town. And it was always wonderful flying around that area because when you were doing barrel rolls, you used to aim on Table Mountain. You remember what Table Mountain looks like? This flat mountain. Aim on Table Mountain, pull the aircraft up onto its back, go around that way, and come up back on Table Mountain. Yeah? Can you imagine that? Eh? You know? And the ocean is all around you. It was amazing. It was really great flying. But when you weren't flying, I used to walk into the pub. Well, it didn't happen every night, please don't get me wrong. You hit the pub, and there were times when I used to crawl out on all fours. Let me tell you, that's what you did. Did that happen to you guys?
Then you got religion.
Well,
You stopped him. Now he's sweating.
I was at the military academy as well. I did a course, an officer's course, professional officer's course at the military academy. And lo and behold, the chaplain at the academy was the Reverend Potgieter. And when I was still living with my folks in Port Elizabeth, his daughter actually happened to live in Port Elizabeth, and I've got a twin brother, and myself and my twin brother took his daughter and another girl out, Afrikaans-speaking girls, you know, and we took them to the drive-ins and whatnot, and we had a lot of fun, let me tell you. You guys also probably had a lot of fun in the drive-ins as well, with your girlfriends, am I right? Betty, you not there? No, you don't. And lo and behold, I arrive at the military academy, and here's the minister. And he said, I've heard about you. You must leave my daughter alone. And I've served 4 years in the South African Air Force and came out, met my wife, and I'd always been a religious person. I can remember even in early grade schools, we used to stand next to our desks at school every morning, recite the Lord's Prayer, and I would be crying tears. I love God. I've always loved God. And so then, and when he eventually took me by the scruff of the neck, he said, "Come, I want you to serve." And so I went to the seminary, and in Grahamstown, which was it was the height of the emergency in South Africa, the height of apartheid. There was war zones. Communities were killing each other. And it was just too desperate for words. And I found myself now, having come out of the Air Force, having come out of being a part of the industrial military machine that was South Africa, very strong. There was no doubt that we probably would have still been in that million ethos still today if it wasn't for certain leaders opening their minds and realizing that it's got to come to an end. And so I found myself in the state of emergency in Grahamstown, in this war zone, and I found out how fast I could run because I was working in a black congregation in a township, a black township, and there was a loud knocking on the doors, and the minister opened the doors. Here were South African infantry troops with their rifles, wanting to come into the church, and he said, "You guys are welcome to come in, you just leave your rifles outside." They weren't prepared to do that. Closed the doors again. The next thing, tear gas is coming through the window, being pumped into the church, you know. And I was wearing a cassock, cassock was black sort of thing. I just lifted my cassock up here and I ran. And you can find out how fast you run. You can run when you're chased by police dogs and all that sort of thing. Let's try it one day. and trying to escape the tear gas and so on. It was terrible. And Desmond Tutu, I don't know if you've come across Bishop Desmond Tutu, know very well. He was my diocesan bishop, and he selected me for training in the ministry. And the current Archbishop as well, know very well, he was my junior at seminary. And we've served in various parishes. When I was in Randfontein, my wife's also an ordained minister, although females were only ordained at a very later stage, quite conservative church and so on. Women, you know, it's okay having them around, but don't ordain them. Anyway, they are ordained now. And we started a ministry for caring for so-called AIDS orphans, because we had a president at one stage who refused to introduce antiretroviral drugs to combat the HIV virus. And so people were getting AIDS and dying like flies of AIDS. And so there were an enormous amount of orphans that were on our doorsteps. And so we started the project, and we're looking after 580 so-called AIDS orphans. All orphans, both parents are dead. And but our numbers are actually reducing because antiretrovirals are keeping the parents alive for a lot longer, and which is a good thing. And so we do that. And being retired, I still run a church, a retirement village, and our orphans, and I'm heavily involved in the Air Force Association. Serve on the National Executive Committee on the Benevolence. I head the Benevolence, and one of the reasons why I really wanted to meet you guys is to learn a little bit more about what you do as far as benevolence is concerned. As far as benevolence, just backtracking slightly. Colonel Rod Douglas was a pilot in the First World War, and he could see how people coming out of that war were deprived in so many ways and really had a bad life adjusting to civilian life again. And so towards the end of the Second World War, he started a Christmas cheer program where people serving outside the country, Air Force people outside the country, could always get a very nice Christmas dinner. And he was very concerned with people then also coming out of the Second World War and going into problems. And so he and a number of other Air Force people had a meeting on the 11th of December 1944, 11th of December 1944, and they had this meeting and setting up Constitution and the aims and all the sort of things that they believed needed to be instrumental in helping bringing people back into normal civilian life and so on. And the next meeting is the founding of our association was on the 26th of January 1945. So I think we just outdate you just slightly. We're a little bit newer. But of course the South African Air Force is the second oldest Air Force in the world. Did you guys know that? Second only to the Royal Air Force. And so we go. Benevolence, the pillars on which we base our association obviously is camaraderie and friendship. So important to us. We want to, because it's a brotherhood. I mean, you guys are in a brotherhood, and we want to foster that connection and closeness. And so we camaraderie, friendship, we get together and we have fun together. We also, of course, care for and look after people, ex-Air Force people, Air Force Association people who have fallen on hard times. And so we help them either with medical, paying their medical bills, getting them into the military hospitals, and money and to pay rent and all that sort of thing, just to help them along and so on. And obviously our liaison with the Air Force, we take that seriously as well, so that we can keep a strong liaison. The president of our, I don't know what it's like with you chaps, but the president of our association ranks with the chief of the Air Force, same rank, and they have the same accolades given to them. And also, of course, we honor the memory of those past members, military people who have died. And so we attend the memorial functions, we attend the parades, we take that very, very seriously. And it's lovely, with you guys paying allegiance to the flag and to the country, we do something similar as well. It's important to do that.
Is the airport integrated now?
Well, totally. Totally. But it's like the United States Air Force, budgets are being cut. We're not involved in a war at the moment, although we are providing military support into Central Africa, and we still fly quite a few C-130s, the Hercules, and taking troops and all sorts of things into Central Africa. But that's basically it. The fighter squadrons have been reduced in numbers. And of course the veteran Air Force people are very upset about it, quite frankly. Yeah. Yes.
What religion is
I'm a Christian.
Okay, I thought it was a Dutch Reformed.
Denomination?
Oh, you mean denominations?
Yes.
I'm Episcopalian. But when you say Dutch Reformed, I must admit that when I was in the Air Force, I did join the Dutch Reformed Church for two reasons. One, my friends were there. Secondly, Actually, the girls were a lot prettier. I kid you not, they were. They really were.
There was during 9/11 when the buildings came down.
Yeah.
The workers that went in to, find people and rescue people. There was a graveyard there. I don't know if you ever went over there. And there was a Dutch Reformed church there that was like one of the first churches in the United States. And
Not surprising.
not even a window broke on the church.
Oh, really?
And the workers were working in that rubble, and the heat was melting their boots, so the Dutch Reformed Church would feed them
I
and
heard that.
give them boots and stuff. When you went in that church, you could just feel the spirituality that was there. It was amazing. It was just a couple blocks from 9/11.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think it's is it the old Trinity Church?
I think St. Paul's.
St.
St.
Paul's. St. Paul's, okay.
Yeah, that's closer. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting how you guys and the British, the Americans, in fact, the American Air Museum in Britain, belong to that thing. But it's a big camaraderie.
Yeah.
New Zealand and
Yeah,
Australia.
sure. Yeah. We were brothers in arms in those days, no doubt about it. Yeah. I come out of half my family are Afrikaans, Dutch people, and half English. And just to wave the flag a little bit, in 1871, my great-grandfather was the president of the old South African Republic, the old Transvaal Republic, the two Afrikaans republics that fought against the Brits in the Anglo-Dutch War. And when those people stopped killing each other, they fell in love with each other, got married, had children. Here I stand now.
And I used to collect stamps when I was a kid and I had Transvaal stamps.
Oh, fine, there you go.
Me too.
There you go, fine.
That's where I know the word, from stamp collecting.
Yes. Amazing, yeah. Keep them. They'll be worth a lot of money one day.
You have a website, there's a South American Air Force Association website.
Yeah.
Okay.
South African Air Force Association website, yes, we do.
And similar with memory, the Air Force Association sponsored the Air Force Memorial.
Yeah, yes, we do. Part of our funding goes into the memorial at Bays Hill. It's a very nice Air Force memorial. Have a look at it. I don't have it at my fingertips now, the website, but have a look at it. You can go into it easily enough.
And some of the beneficial things that we do is we contribute to the Wounded Warriors program.
Okay.
If anybody contributes through the Air Force Association, 100% of the dollars contributed go directly to the Wounded Warriors. We don't take out any overhead.
Interesting. I would tend to think that as far as benevolence is concerned, pretty much the same way. We do the same sort of thing.
I would think so. We do run into some regulatory issues.
Okay.
We can't just get names. The Air Force can't give us names. The Veterans Association, Veterans Administration will not provide us. So on a one-to-one basis, unless we find people ourselves, it's difficult. So these Wounded Warrior campaigns very important. We've done a lot here in New Jersey because they've had the Wounded Warrior games at West Point twice. We support that. We support that with transportation. We've actually, the chapter here 2 years ago provided funds because it turned out that the veterans with post-traumatic stress were not allowed to stay on base at West Point. And all of a sudden, these families that were participating, they had to go to hotels and motels. We provided some of the funding.
Oh, excellent,
for that.
excellent.
So,
I'm glad that you mentioned that, Bill, because we've just started taking a notice of the post-traumatic stress disorder in people. Not a lot of Air Force people, but certainly a lot of Army people involved. And I've been here, I've missed the initial meeting that we've had. So I'll find out a little bit more when I get back, so that we can also provide that service.
very interesting. I noticed, one of the things you alluded to is about going out and drinking or imbibing when you were in the military. Now,
when I was on R&R in Hong Kong, I happened to have an uncle. He was my great uncle, so but he was in Hong Kong, a Catholic missionary priest, and went out drinking with him and some of his friends that night, all priests. And all I can say is they drank me under the table. I think it's just a
We've got to keep
religious
the flag
thing.
flying. Yeah. I knew Jesuit monks used to keep bottles of whiskey down the cows in the back of the car.
You didn't have to worry about getting any disease that way.
Right.
No. If you're a heavy drinker, you don't get sick.
Right.
So where are you now? How much longer are you in Jersey?
I'm going to be for this next week in Summit. I'm at the Calvary Summit, the Episcopal Church there, working there, and I'm going down to Nashville. I'm going to be there on Sunday the 25th, and a couple of days before and a couple of days afterwards. And then I was also going to Washington to go to the Smithsonian and go and see a few other places as well.
Well, make sure you visit the Air Force Memorial down there. It's the highest, little side story here, it's the highest memorial in Washington, D.C. We wanted to place it closer to Arlington, and there was a lot of blowback by the Marines because theirs is the closest. So we ended up with the highest spot in the Washington, D.C. area. We're on the highest elevation. So,
I'll certainly do that.
yeah.
I'll certainly do that.
So when you say you're preaching, is that the correct word?
Yeah.
Okay. My daughter was married by an Episcopalian minister.
Well, then it can only work.
Yeah, so I don't, but I'm Catholic, so I don't know.
Right.
So,
My twin brother is a Catholic.
We can't all be perfect.
My wife who was Catholic told me Episcopalians are really Catholics without the guilt.
okay.
That's a good one. I hear that, yeah.
So are you preaching tomorrow?
I am indeed, yes. And remember, it's
next Sunday?
Father's Day. If you guys are
Right.
fathers, you're going to be spoiled rotten tomorrow.
Right. But are you preaching next Sunday too?
No,
just tomorrow. is
It's
the
just
last
tomorrow.
day.
I'll be down in Nashville. Before.
Okay, Nashville.
But yeah, the 2nd of July I'll be back preaching again.
Is there
And
any
you'll
difference?
be in DC after that.
I want to go to Washington before I go to Nashville.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Just want to mention that if you go to Washington DC in the National Air and Space Museum, of course, we mentioned Keith Ferris is
Yes.
painted 2 murals. One's on the Jet Age and the other one's on the B-17 Thunderbird. And also, if you go to the World War I section, our chapter is named Shooting Star, after the shooting star on a Spot 13 World War I plane that was flown by Arthur Raymond Brooks. And so our chapter, he was a member of our chapter, Arthur Raymond Brooks. And his plane, World War II, was restored there. And when they restored it, they dedicated it. When they dedicated it, he was there. And he gave some interviews, and if you go around the, there's some kiosks there, you can just click on it, and you'll
That's fascinating.
listen to him at that time.
Certainly will. It's
The
fascinating.
F-80, the first kind of jet we had, was called the F-80 Shooting Star.
right.
Right. Indeed, yes. I've seen photographs of that. Yeah.
So
It had
when
nothing to do with the Air Force, but there's religious ceremonies back home compared to here. Are they similar, or are there a big difference? What have you found?
The liturgy is the same in the Episcopalian Church, with the Anglican Church. Just the wording is slightly different. That's all.
But the sequencing of the...
Yeah, all the same.
It's all the accent.
It's the accent.
He doesn't have one, we do.
Yeah, I love it. And this comes from our South African Air Force little badge. It's a plaque, and I'd like to, on behalf of our association, present it to Chapter 195. And
That's fantastic. Can we?
Yeah, we give them a membership, right?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, yes. Howard's always stealing my thunder. He's like 3 steps ahead of me. This probably must be smart. I don't know. But yes, absolutely. And I would like to, I have an Air Force, an AFA magazine that we publish monthly. And the annual one, I have one with me. I brought it.
do you? The
So
annual
we'll give
one?
him
Okay.
one of those.
You don't have to be a spy anymore, we publish it all.
Yeah.
But thank you. And can I invite, you just like to, we'll just present you with this African Air Force tie.
Wow.
Wow. See, sometimes it's good to be king.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might actually wear this if that's okay.
Not to-
I'm going to keep this.
Sure.
If I have your permission, the officers present. So fantastic. Well, thank you. Let me,
It's a pleasure.
so glad we can make this happen.